Alright folks, today I am here once again to bring you my thoughts and feelings on The Walking Dead Dead City Season 2 Episode 6, Bridge Partners Are Hard to Come By These Days. Now, I have to be honest here, this is the first episode this season I'd say I outright did not enjoy. And I'd go as far as to say the various plot lines of this season in general are starting to fall apart. I was actually planning on combining my episodes 6 and 7 reviews next week, but I was sort of left in shock after finishing this episode last night. I don't enjoy being negative in my reviews. You know, I want to love every aspect of what this franchise is doing, but you have to be honest with your thoughts or else there's no point in giving them, and in this case, I found a lot of this episode silly and nonsensical. I feel as if I made the mistake of believing there was more going on underneath the surface. I thought some big reveal was coming with Herschel or something that would change the status quo of the series. However, the deeper we get into the season, the more holes and flaws begin to pop up all around. The first of my general issues with the season as a whole, Central Park. I thought it was a really cool idea initially to explore the wilds of the park, but then I realized after like 4 episodes, we're just filming in the damn woods again. My biggest issue with Season 1 was their tendency to often film in back alleys or indoors, anywhere that wouldn't cost too much to shut down areas of a city while mostly utilizing establishing shots to convey the location. But now, it's very clear this is their new method of saving money, so my immersion in that department's sort of been broken. Second, the mega herd. Season 1 established Manhattan was home to a herd of 1 million plus walkers, yet we haven't even seen a hint of it this season. I mean, people had to zip line between buildings to avoid it last season, but now it's as if the mega herd had never existed in the first place, which has made the world building feel really off. There's an entire avenue lit up in the middle of the city, so why the hell isn't the herd a major problem for the Barazzi's plans? It was established years ago, light, movement, and noise are what attract walkers, so I feel like the herd should have been integral to the story. You know, how do we bring the city back if every time a street lights up, the herd arrives to fill the surrounding blocks? I don't know, the conflict kind of writes itself in my opinion. And that's not even mentioning the other unique aspects of the city that seem to have been dropped, such as walkers randomly falling from skyscrapers. All these little additions really added to the danger of the environment, but now everything feels quiet once again. And third, the methane. If you watch my episodes 1 and 2 reviews back, you'll see I was extremely intrigued with the War for Methane plotline and thought this was exactly what this era of the series needed to feel like we were making progress in rebuilding society. And I know I've mentioned this a few times already, but at the time, I was under the impression the goal was to find ways to produce it themselves, whether that was through schematics or kidnapping the Croat, etc. But they literally just want to obtain barrels and leave, which is ridiculous when considering how big New Babylon allegedly is. I say allegedly because we've barely seen New Babylon outside of the bricks. A few methane barrels won't do you any good after like 6 months with your coalition spread that thin, so the fact that Bruegel is now attempting to betray Negan and the Croat to get his hands on the methane himself is even sillier. I mean, they're already allied with the men capable of making all of this happen. Just play their game and your museum will be lit up forever. And speaking of the Croat, why does everyone treat him like he isn't the most valuable person on this entire island? As of now, it does seem like the Dama's actually dead, which in that case, what an odd death scene. But the fallout of it has been even stranger. The Croat realizes pretty quickly Negan was the one who manipulated the situation and basically immediately turns on him. But as Negan outfights and overpowers him, he talks down to him to the point where Melee just utterly folds and admits to being nothing but a Negan wannabe before accepting banishment from the Barazzi, who turn on him all the same. What has Negan even done to earn the Barazzi's full loyalty anyway? Was it because he said the Croat's a Negan clone and they just lost respect? Again, this man is bringing power back to a dead city. In what world would these people follow Negan's lead in banishing him? It's not like he knows how to produce methane himself, and if their production facility runs into issues, who's gonna fix it? I didn't really understand that aspect of the scene, but I did sort of like how Negan implies Melee's banishment was for his own good instead of his own lust for power. Although, admittedly, the whole Negan realizes he was the problem plot has been played out to death. But throughout the episode, we kept hearing Annie and Negan's son were about to arrive on the island any day. And to my shock, we actually did see them on screen. But in an attempt to build off the whole I'm the problem dilemma with Negan, he forces the Barazi to send them back to Tennessee without even saying hello. Again, this sort of internal conflict isn't really new for the characters, so I'm pretty disappointed this is all they've had to bring to the table for him. And if that's all we're getting with Annie and Joshua this season, then I'm confident in saying they were simply a plot device used to keep Negan in place, rather than characters who are intended to have a role in the series' future. But as Negan's side of the episode wraps up, we get a scene that basically played out exactly how I said it would last review. Janie goes off to kill Negan, only to nearly die from her injury in front of him, forcing him to help her and mend that bridge. Again, I just don't really care for this character, but what I found kind of interesting is that I previously speculated she was meant to act as a foil to Herschel who didn't care about killing Negan. But as Maggie stated this episode, she's more of a foil to her and her struggles in allowing Negan to live after everything he's done, which admittedly does work pretty well. But in terms of the Barazi as a whole this episode, I found the consequences of the Dama's death strange and the inner conflict with Negan played out. Negan is either gonna stay in Manhattan and assume the role of leader for real, which is a straight up retread of his arc, or he's gonna abandon the island and leave the Barazi behind, which would basically remove the personal conflict from the city. Alternatively, perhaps the Croat could come back and retake his throne, effectively imprisoning Negan once again. If I'm being honest, none of the above really seem that interesting to me. Unless this season has some serious revelations with Negan coming in the next couple episodes, I can't see a direction that'll be anything genuinely new for the character. But moving on to Maggie's side of the episode, which honestly had even more issues in my opinion, Maggie, Pearlie, and Herschel have been taken in by Bruegel as he believes they can help him acquire the methane for himself. In exchange, he will take out all the Barazi and even send them on their way with the barrels they've been looking for at the risk of facing another wave of New Babylon soldiers. Maggie doesn't trust Bruegel and wants to bail, but Pearlie believes the numbers Bruegel brings will be enough to complete the mission and conveys his intentions to stick with the plan, effectively meaning Bruegel's men are now allied with New Babylon, which pisses Herschel off as his whole problem this season has been with New Babylon's backwards laws, and now they have added to their ranks with a batch of even worse survivors. So sneaking around in the dead of night, Herschel closes the door to where everyone was sleeping and attempts to poison their water supply with walker blood, which fails as Maggie catches him in the act. But if I remember correctly, wasn't Herschel in tears last episode over accidentally getting all the New Babylon soldiers killed? He was fully in agreement to come home with Maggie during their conversation in the boathouse, but now it's as if that scene never happened. I was under the impression he just wanted them out of their hair but didn't wish for anyone to die. But here he's full on rage mode again, which comes off as confusing. I get Bruegel's a bad person, but this just feels like a 180 compared to his words last episode. Although he is right in the fact the bricks isn't their home and is just an attempt to live a normal life, which once again brings up the question of why the hell they're not in the Commonwealth in the first place. It feels like a lot of things had to be ignored or left unexplained in order to get the story to where it is now, and I'm beginning to really see the holes these floating questions have left behind. But of course, the moment everyone's been waiting for. The bear. Oh boy. Now, I get the need to foreshadow a big threat surrounding them in the woods to avoid making it feel like it came out of nowhere, and I appreciate actually seeing an escaped zoo animal instead of just being told they're out there. But the mystery was set up as if we weren't shown a giant bear in all the trailers multiple times, so the whole something's mauling our allies bit fell completely flat for me. And although I thought the bear itself did actually look pretty good, I thought this entire sequence was silly as hell. First of all, I need to just say this now because I feel like I'm going to be hearing it for the next few years. That was definitely a regular bear, not a walker bear. They really tried to fake us out by having it look undead, but the way it responds to other walkers is a clear indicator those were just scars on an otherwise living, breathing grizzly. I can't get over how dumb it is that none of Bruegel's men heard a single thing going on in the room next to them. Herschel closes the door to where they're sleeping here, and nobody wakes up when this damn bear is screaming in the hall next to them, which is a complete fail for the sequence. I did like that they didn't portray Maggie as superhuman. She puts up a good fight in throwing the spears and whatnot, but there was no way she was killing that thing by herself, and the show knew it. However, what made me audibly laugh out loud was Herschel's double throwing knife snipe to its face from a second floor balcony. I don't know how they could have done it realistically, but the way it came off was extremely silly in my opinion, and it didn't particularly amount to anything either. I mean, Herschel could have just run out the door into the woods during he and Maggie's confrontation, which would have led to the same outcome of Maggie encountering Negan during her search for him, so I don't get it. I know I'm already frustrated with this episode, so a lot of things will bug me more than usual, but the execution of some parts of the sequence could have been done much better in my opinion, and the whole event sort of felt like an attempt to recapture the excitement of the Walker King boss fight last season. You know, she fought something big last year, so what if she fights something bigger this year? But closing out the episode, we see Maggie and Negan talk face to face once again, where we see the tension between them has really dissipated since their first encounter in episode 4. They both have a mutual interest in protecting their families, so in his state of self-reflection, Negan tells Maggie to search for Herschel in the theater as he more than likely went there to find the Dama, which Maggie reciprocates by warning him of Bruegel's incoming double cross. I'm really glad we're past the whole "is Maggie gonna kill Negan" thing. At this point, their dynamic is about living with the decision to coexist, which although isn't groundbreaking, is a better approach to the relationship after all these years. But if I'm being honest, that's pretty much all I have to say about this episode. As much as I've tried looking beneath the surface of some of these slower conversations, there really isn't anything deeper to find. I was really confident in believing the war for Methane would carry heavy consequences for the franchise as a whole, but so far it just hasn't. Nobody gives a shit about the Croat, who's the only one capable of making this happen in the first place. And the Barazi are basically just mindless soldiers moving where the plot needs them to be. I mean, the Dama is dead. The woman who has been orchestrating this all through fear, yet nobody outside the Croat cares, or at least is shown to care. Negan is now the big man in charge, but there's no real reason he should be. I mean, all he's done this season is recruit a group who is about to turn on him while failing in recruiting another. And Herschel, well, I think the actor is doing a fantastic job with what he has, but his motivations are really starting to lose me. As far as we know, the Dama literally just talked to him and got into his head. She doesn't have anything over him. He just straight up drank the Kool-Aid, which in my opinion is pretty underwhelming. Maybe he'll go full-on villain once he discovers the Dama is dead, but in terms of a revelation that will recontextualize everything we've seen with him this season, I don't think it'll be anything like how we learned Maggie was in Manhattan to trade Negan, if anything at all. Like I said, everything kind of just falls apart when you really start thinking about it. Everything Herschel's doing is to oppose New Babylon, and Maggie has been roped into this due to New Babylon's laws. But they don't need to be at New Babylon. Go home! Ezekiel literally runs the Commonwealth. If you guys enjoyed this episode, I am envious, as I wanted to love this season more than anything, but some of these plotlines are just unfolding in very nonsensical ways that so far have left me disappointed. Holy shit, I almost forgot the bit about Lucia. They really tried to tell us she lived long enough with an open throat to crawl away and spill every detail about their mission to Bruegel before dying. Remember when Amy lasted like 30 seconds after a single bite to the neck? Yeah, apparently Lucia tanked 30 before crawling for miles. I understand this was Lauren Cohen's first directing gig, and to be clear, I actually think she did a good job in that position. It was the writing this episode that dropped the ball and has honestly affected my enjoyment of the season as a whole. If I would rate this episode, I'd unfortunately give it a 3 out of 10 at the most. A drastic drop from any other episode this season. Again, I don't like being negative in my videos, but I couldn't see past the silliness surrounding this entire installment. Although I am very curious to hear whether or not you guys enjoyed this episode in the comments down below. The thing I love about this fanbase is how varied some opinions on certain topics can be, so I want to hear all about it. But that is going to do it for me today, folks. As always, thank you so much for watching.